Hello, Rick. We cannot see you. We cannot hear you.
Oh, hello, everyone. I'll be there in just one more moment. Need to get my camera set up. Just give me a couple more moments, please. Thank you. Love and light and gratitude to you all.
Yeah. So the voice is coming from Romania.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of history in the mountain.
Yeah. Wow. No, I don't know all the history, and it's like to learn things would be really eye-opening, but yeah.
It's not a big difference if you are looking in the past. The problem is that they change everything.
Yeah. And for everybody to quit consenting to it.
Yeah. Sir, you are from Ontario, yes? You are still in Ontario?
No, I'm in BC.
Guys. Yeah, I'm from Ontario.
Yeah.
You hear me?
Yeah, but practically you move all Canada.
Yeah, I'm moving I live in Canada now, yes, but I'm driving right now in a truck, coming back to Canada from US.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Rick, we cannot hear you. You are speaking, but the mic is not working.
It's working now. Yeah, I was speaking to Femke. We're just getting ready here. I had actually forgot, so thank you so much for the reminder. Yeah, it's great to see Serge here and the other divine gentleman with the phone number. What's your name, if I may?
I'm Frank. I'm in British Columbia, in Canada.
Oh, hey Frank, what part of BC?
The Lower Mainland, Maple Ridge.
Oh, right over in Maple Ridge. Yeah. I stayed up in behind at Stave Lake at the campground there the one winter. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, been here about, I don't know, 10 to 15 years.
Right on.
And yeah, grew up in Langley and the other side of the river, and then moved over here with a young family.
Excellent. Yeah, when I was there several years ago, and it connects into, this time of GPMS with Kevin Annett and those movements going forward with the Republic of Canada. Just saying here, I don't ever exclude anything, but when we began GPMS, Kevin and everyone should have been in support of this, is what you would have anticipated, what I did. But subsequently, as we're seeing not yet are they aligned with this. But if you use this as just one example of they label it separatist movements worldwide. Just recently, and worldwide, there are so many groups. And again, the numbers are out there. It's just uniting them all with the GPMS and getting the majority voice, and it's all over.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, I kind of feel the same way. I've listened to Kevin Annett some years ago and what he was doing, and there was different groups even before all the COVID stuff. There was whatever you want to call them, sovereignty groups or whatever, trying to speak to that. And but they like to hear about GPMS and see what that's about, and then to not unite under it or with it seems strange to me.
Indeed, yeah, very odd, but nevertheless, it also has to do with the consciousness level as well. So we had a U.S. We had a US meeting yesterday, Beatrice sat in on, and what I just shared there, it's obvious to eye that some cannot even see GPMS visually. When you put out some things with it written, they don't even see the word, they don't see the solution. And one of the reasons for that was the intense conditioning and programming. And you have it at different levels of the awakening consciousness as well. And, you know, this is part of breaking through these levels so they see the absolute common sense solution. But, you know, to the various programming, many don't see it yet, but many more are as we go forward. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's too bad. It seems to, yeah, if it could only, like you talked about things happening in a flash, or we're in a flash, and well, it sure doesn't feel like a flash right now. So
Well, we're in a flash. It's the duration of that flash. As I said, 2012, I'd like to say it began began more, yeah, but we're near coming out it. So this is good news, but
yeah, no, that's
everyone, you know, the ones that are not in alignment divinely, and it's not cruel, but divinely, they need to be suppressed into it and divinely forced to make a decision. So that involves, it goes very deep with one to, let's say, instill their highest morality at knowing what is right and wrong. But also part of that is for them seeing what works and what doesn't. But it's also dissecting the old system to know that it cannot be used. So through the trial and error and the exhaustion of all of their attempts, then they come into, let's say, a place of surrender. And from that place of surrender, then they're able to more readily see GPMS. So it's also part of the process.
okay. Yeah, Beatrice and I were touching on that a bit before we started, or you came on. It made sense to me after that. I was There's a
because
process to
Frank had a question. He said that he heard a lot about 4 million people inside of Ascension movement, and his question was practically why we have not these 4 million people inside of GPMS at this time.
I couldn't quite hear you, Beatrice. Well, what was the question? Why do we not have who in
Yeah,
GPMS?
so you spoke about a group of 4.2 million people that they are working, you are working inside of this group for Ascension. And Frank's question was why we have not them, all these 4 million people inside of GPMS.
Great question. These 4 million, let's say, are at different levels of their development and coming to know what they're here to do as well. And it's because of this that they're not all united yet. And they also need to go through their courses of individual divine training, and they need to be separated from the system. And this occurs with their individual experiences where, let's say, divinely, they're given a divine choice to come into alignment to do what is right. But if they don't, if their soul, while in the human form, doesn't make that choice and continues to be part of the old system, then very quickly, divinely, everything is taken from them to put them into a position to come into alignment. So what we have, you know, with this 4 million, we can say many of these are ascension teachers, healers, and what have you, but they have been bought to various degrees by the system itself. And they've been bought because they don't have all of the gnosis yet, the knowledge why they came here. So also they got to go into that experience and recognize it for themselves, so that when they come out of it, they are refined, purified, and the strongest at knowing the inner dynamics of the old system and being better educated to take things forward as a peer and a leader in the right direction. You know, currently with what we have with GPMS is, let's say, a handful that have reached that level of knowing, if you will, yet to know what needs to be done. But then again, in the blink of an eye, it can happen so quickly that many will rise, and divinely worldwide, you know, we take Canada and the US, you can see how it's all divinely orchestrated, that you're not going to have one or two trickle out of this, out of the ashes. You are going to have very many. And this is why GPMS can happen in the blink of an eye, because what you have coming out is just not regular humans. We are not just regular humans, we are divine, or we would not have got this far with everything we've been doing. The Great Awakening never would have occurred if the darkness was in power, if you will. But there's also part of that mastery is for these divine peers at knowing, being briefed totally on what was wrong with the world and the dynamics and the tactics of how it works. So it was part of that training, if you will. And, you know, I share openly. There are times I'm befuddled and not perplexed, if you will, but saying, you know, come on, you'll have a teacher that is speaking all the right things, but it's only superficial. It's not embodied, meaning that they speak it, but it's like a written script, and they're not really acting it out to the depths that it needs to be to activate their morality, if you will. And so they still succumb and are humbled by the old system. And this is very important as what we teach. In reality, any divine one here cannot be humbled by the system. They have to raise above that humility of the system and not be controlled, you know, by it. And this is where we're at a very good pivotal point. An example of that is the churches worldwide that, you know, are in alignment somewhat with God, but you know, here's God, here's the government, and here's the church. So the government's in between controlling them. Yet, so the church, for the most part, has been humbled by the dark system itself. And so, yeah, if that explains it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. The experience gives you the inner knowledge to, stand on your own 2 feet about it all. Yeah.
So, Rick, may we have a little bit knowledge what happens in other countries, if you know a little bit more, because we had not a contributor meeting to see all of them, and we just question what really happens in Philippines, in India. So what do you know that how GPMS is moving at this time forward?
Very importantly, this overall divine plan is taken forward by the feminine force the most. And what we have with the masculine is the support, the foundation, if you will, to support the feminine to take this quickly forward in the world as well. So having said this, what is occurring, I love using the Philippines as an example of that, where you've had several divine feminine got together and are sharing the GPMS, taking it to the streets, the women and the children, while you had, let's say, the people's movement that was more patriarchal control, but it was kind of like more aggressive, going and wanting to fight with the governments, and that is not the solution. So what you have seen is the divine feminine, they're taking the prudent and right divine course that, come on, it's a waste of time. You don't fight with the governments and get on track. And, we got this solution. So having said this, to my knowledge, in the Philippines, I've heard several times, and this is fact, that it's very possible in short time to have tens of millions from the Philippines coming in there. And one of the reasons for this is that the Philippines as a whole, our brothers and sisters there, have gone through much of the experiences, that experiencing the lack and many attempts, even with coups to try to do something to alleviate the poverty. And each time with the government squashing it, suppressing the people. To this extent, this has not occurred in the Western civilization. And, for various reasons, but I like to say the real truth is, unbeknownst to everyone, the Western civilization had bought everyone into more of a control. It's different circumstances. However, this is the root root problem in the Western civilization. So with India, we have them expanding, and we're also the same sort of thing to empower and support the feminine to take the message forward. And I believe most of the masculine on here would concur that the people would be more apt to trust a feminine rather than a masculine, meaning that a feminine will not tend to lie as much as the masculine. So, they're more trusted with that. And that is true as well, because the patriarch, were corrupted by the system. The masculine were corrupted. I was, unbeknownst to it before I come to know who I was. So I know how everything works, as all of us. So with India, the potential there is, it's when you look at 1.4 billion population of India, and 85% of that being in poverty in some form of lack. Well, you have a billion right there, that are in alignment for GPMS. But again, it's that ability for them to see that it's possible. So there is that consciousness layer that is there that makes it difficult at times for ones to see the simplicity of it and the common sense. Nevertheless, I just put out one of the reasons I was late. I was putting out a post how GPMS is assimilating, the world with peace and love and what have you. And so we do persevere with it. Yes, it's a tedious and let's say lengthy excursion so far, but again, it's divinely ordained, and it is guaranteed, or I would not even be sitting here attempting such a thing. For I don't say this egotistically, but I am also a very intelligent human conscious aspect as well to me. And I would not be doing this if we didn't hold all of the winning cards in our hand, because I don't like playing games. But nevertheless, so we have, this is very great. In Romania, as Beatrice knows, and what we had to, I was under the impression, which was correct before we come to Romania, that there was at least a sizable sovereignty oriented group that was ready for GPMS. But when I come in here and get right into and meeting with some, it became obvious, no, they're not aligned with this. They're still in aggression, and they cannot be aligned with GPMS when they're in aggression. So what I come to find out here so far, there are some sovereign ones, small groups that are partly into this, but again, it's not what I had anticipated, and then it means it's divine groundwork, and that's being done in Romania. Mariana has made some good moves at going directly to the poor people instead of trying to go to, let's say, pastors, heads of churches, or prominent figures. And also, there is the controlled opposition element, what is leading many of these false intentional narratives worldwide, like the white hats. That's a false one, Jacera Nasera. But the reason why the darkness, if you will, like a movement will get going, and then it'll get infiltrated and controlled by the darkness to keep it in a state of preoccupation, in a codependency, and a procrastination of the people. So the darkness comes in to keep the people complacent while time continues on, where they attempt to enforce more of their agenda, if you will. So these are all ploys, the false narratives that tricks the people, if you will, that believes them. Then they sit waiting for someone else to do something. But this is the tactic of the darkness, to keep them not doing anything, because the biggest threat is all of these uniting, and with GPMS, it's all over for the darkness. So the other countries, we also need to look at the factors that we're contending with. And when I say contention, there is no problems. We always have the solution. But one of the obstacles is about 47% of the world's population does not have internet or regular access to it. So what this does, and the reason with this 47%, but why it's so important, is because they are so poor, they're in poverty, that they cannot afford it as well. And this is where you're going to get a lot of your majority voice for GPMS. When you look at that number, 47%, that means we're not even reaching them, or very, very small. We're beginning to go in there. For example, use Uganda, where you got the orphanages with children, and you have these villages that don't have internet. They're just existing. But what we do have is certain ones with GPMS that are going in the villages, getting the names. So this means that even though they don't have internet, we have access to them through a missionary, if you will, going in and doing that. So having said this, as we grow in numbers as well, what there has to be, or should be, is a philanthropist connection coming in, the great humanitarian supporting ones, to get this vote gathered as soon as possible. But when you look at this, ideally, the media's, the prominent truthers out there, all of them should be carrying this solution and assisting.
I don't get it.
Yeah, in gathering the voice, because this is what ends everything, especially with the US. They keep hollering about a deep state and a cabal, but the only reason that has any power is because of their money and their control of the internet. So it makes absolute even military strategic sense, what you do is you just overpower them, where we have 99% of the people, but you take away their most effective artillery from the deep state was their ability to buy people. So when ones can no longer be bought, they have lost all of their power. And this is the simplicity and the checkmate scenario of GPMS. But this is also when you come to find the controlled opposition with this, you have these so-called scholastic educated ones, but when they cannot see the simplicity of GPMS, well, very quickly, you know, they've got to be controlled opposition. So that identifies.
They feel threatened by it all then, with their position they're in, and is that it?
Yeah. Very quickly, they cower away when they've been approached with GPMS. So cut off communication and nothing as well. And, as Beatrice can attest to, and others, and in these groups, when you put GPMS in there, the ultimate solution, so you'll have groups are looking for solutions, and you put it in, then an administrator will ban GPMS or whatever. So it shows you they're controlling the content. So it's most obvious, right?
Yeah.
And so this again is why we must go to the people individually, if you will, and that cracks open the false narratives, and that's already occurring as well. So you have by the people being better informed about what we said, and and when you look at the Nocera concept is so easy to destruct, for decades now, they've been saying tomorrow, tomorrow. So, perhaps a million times. How many times does ones need to be fooled before they can see, and part of that is because they were brainwashed and conditioned, and we are breaking all of that down as well. So when you have ones, when they're listening to these meetings online with Jacera and Nacera and all these narratives, there's also a subliminal frequency which is put in there unbeknownst to the individual. And this is why we have known about this, and this is also why in just the last month, as the timelines separate, all of those higher consciousness ones are not to, we tell them and ask them, don't go into that lower consciousness thread, because you'll contaminate your consciousness, but you're also co-creating here now, manifesting at a higher rate. And if you're even neutrally looking at the lower timeline, if you don't clean your consciousness when you come out, what you're actually doing is contaminating the now with remnants of that, because each one needs to realize you are a co-creator to whatever level you are. And we are creating a reality where none of that old aggression and what have you exists, and it cannot go forward.
Okay, so I this triggers something in me. I was got involved with a group out of Washington State that is trying to stand up against the banking system and that kind of thing, right? And they have people on there with speaking highly of the white hats and this stuff, and QFS and all this kind of stuff. I can see they're kind of got that on their minds, or thinking this is where things are going, but they do try to like stand up against there's a bank fraud, they say, in the world, that money doesn't come from the bank. It's written off a Sescovy trust or a secret trust through the banking system, that it's the lending of the money to you for your mortgage is a complete fraud, and they want to expose that, and then I guess try to battle that in courts and that kind of thing. But I don't see where, like, you're playing in their system still, like in their sandbox. And yeah, if you're exposing someone through sand in your face, like it's in their sandbox kind of thing. You know what I mean? So I don't like, and then so you're saying involvement with that is a lower consciousness. It brings me down into that level. So that's
Let's say
interesting.
it does affect you, because let's look at it. When you're preoccupied with looking at that content, this is where your focus is going, where it's actually the content, what you're looking at is not in alignment with the new free world, what everyone has wants. So what you're saying, it's part of the old. So if you're putting your attention and focus there, it's distracting you from whatever you may do to create the new. So this is why we say, don't focus on that. Now is the time to begin to focus on creating the new, and by getting the information out there. As you're saying, it's nonsensical of what they're doing, about, oh, it's fraudulent, about creating the money and the mortgages. Yes, we know all of that, but it doesn't matter to us, because we just need to put the control of the money making in the people's hands. And the majority of the people with GPMS is what does that. You're not going to get any satisfaction within the old system. And you really, at this point, don't need to prove to the rest of humanity that everything was a lie, a deception, and a fraud, because the evidence out there is surmountable. It's more than enough at this time. So what we need is the ones that know all of this, that it's a waste of time, it's frivolous, it's nonsensical, so that you get in alignment with playing the roles of, as we're doing, uniting and creating and substantiating the foundation of the new world, of the ultimate solution. And with what is her name? Judy, was it Judge or? It's just, nevertheless, in the assemblies and all of these things, with the California assemblies, perhaps if you heard of, and Kim Gauguin and Life Force, and all of these movements also can benefit and can converge and assist with taking GPMS forward. But the same thing with Kim Gauguin. She was approached by and we did have a couple text conversations, but there was no getting to her to unite and join and give her people GPMS. She began to be violent and rejected it and cut off communication. And, I did see some benefit where she had some sort of organization beginning with people to be oriented towards administrating, with the assemblies. But what she had did is complicated it and put the complexity back into it, like the old commerce structure and administrating structure. And that's what took it away from the simplicity. But meaning these assemblies, they could be very quickly just a committee oriented for the people that now have all of the cash to give to everyone in the essential goods and services. So they just become an administrative committee. But where she had, so much of a structure, I believe she had maybe 1 million that were believing this and going with it and, earnestly doing the work. She began to, as for in India and some other countries, ones that have come to GPMS have come out of that as well, seeing that the Life Force initiative was not as genuine and not in alignment with what it was, and there was a lot of separation began in there. But rightfully so, it has to deteriorate and implode if it's not in alignment with the one ultimate solution. So we'll be witnessing this, and we have, and more predominantly, more prominently, we are seeing it now as the old destructs.
Is that in India, you mean? Is that what you're saying? Or do we gotta wait to see that through this whole
Several other countries are seeing it as well. Same as with the white hat and the good government, and same with the QFS. See, none of these can compete nor compare with what GPMS is, but very quickly with a QFS thing, you just say, okay, who's running it? And they'll say the banks and the governments. And then you say, well, hold on.
Isn't that who you're wanting not to do it?
Exactly. So, come on, wake up.
Yeah.
And then you look at the BRIC countries with using gold and what have you. But that is the trickery that robbed the value from everyone. Gold, I need to say that gold, the value of gold would not exist if it wasn't for humanity believing in it, but also gold would not exist if humanity is not here. So it tells you who has the ultimate authority and value. But to tell that to someone, that if they're not awake, they would not even know what you're saying. But this is the actual divine truth. Again, what GPMS is foundationed on, the intrinsic value of all of us. And having said this, it's important to know upon the planet, there is, out of approximate 8 billion population, there's only 6 billion of those that are human souls. And the rest that are out there, planet in every country, are minions and clones and constructs of the darkness that does not have it in their anatomy or genetic makeup to transition into a higher reality. So it's not there. So they're not going. And we don't need to concern about who's not going. We're just gathering who's going and taking it forward and create it, because that's what it's for. It would be ridiculous for ones wanting to stay in an old reality, if you will, when they have the choice to go forward to the new, because the other 2 billion, they are not
well, they're the ones in the media promoting all that. Like that's the ones everybody is seeing and listening to right now, because they're basically controlling the mainstream media, and it's out there, and it's what all the other, if you call those 2 million or billion, then there's whatever the rest 6 million or billion listen, or maybe half of that listening to it at the moment, maybe more than half of that listening to it at the moment. But it's so this whole white hats in control and the military is cleaning up the darkness is all a bunch of BS. Then they're all part of the darkness.
What I will say is that there's a slight good contingent there, but it's not what the narratives were supporting.
It's like you were saying before, it's like to put everybody the 6 billion into complacency, or the 3 billion into complacency that are following it. Is that not the game? They're like, put everybody back to sleep and don't worry, we got it in control.
But what you do look at, when I take military and I take police for an example, the capitalistic system that is here, that is controlling humanity, is still in place. We don't have any free system to go to yet. So everyone is still, for the most part, dependent on the old system money, including the police in the military. And with any police and military, lawfully, they cannot act unless they have the majority of the people, because in actuality, the people are their employers, not the government. So there becomes a moral conflict within them. And what many of them are doing They are like desolate, destitute. They don't know that they have that the solution is here upon the planet. So what you have is, for example, when you look at the RCMP in Canada, what's been happening over the last decade, many of them are taking PTSD leave and what have you, because they know the truth, how it's all corrupt, but they don't have anything else to go to. And they have their families, you know, they have
Yeah.
their pensions.
Yeah, we're all in the same boat, right? Like,
In that delicate spot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
we're all in the same boat.
yeah, the only way, the military cannot do it. The people have to rise. But once the people rise in the majority united voice, that is so powerful that the military is no longer needed in that respect as well. Neither any policing, because of what it does. And again, what GPMS is, it eradicates crime and everything with it.
So that's what you're saying earlier. It's happening more in India and Philippines because, say, in North America here, we're more conditioned or accepting of the current system being civilization, call it, and people are willing to, I guess, keep that alive because they think that's keeping them alive.
Yeah, the old American dream was actually the enslavement to them, and what the American dream, you know, what it entailed, what it contained, was selfishness, competition, selfishness, competition, separatism, and you know, just breaking down the family units as part of that. You know, in the U.S., they began. If you reflect back when you were a child, kindergarten was about at age 5. And what you see, I think, currently with children, putting them in daycare and even kindergarten at perhaps age 2, while you have the both parents out working, you know, and breaking it down. But it was all the monotonous, robotic enslavement control system. But the U.S. is so significant as well with moving GPMS forward for many reasons. You know, it's big, it's considerable population of about 350 million, but it's tech, ingenuity, and its resources and its access to those resources are right there. So we're sitting on a time capsule of all of that very rapid internet ingenuity and promotion and marketing, that these tools could be applied very quickly to distribute the GPMS message. But the problem is they are bought, you know, to most of the degree by the system, and other factors come into this, you know, as the reasoning why. But at any moment, with the false narratives in the U.S. and the white hats and all this, those false narratives was the biggest thing that kept the American awakened community suppressed and enslaved.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is breaking down now, so you can, yeah, you know, you can probably see.
Maybe just we can just point that out to all of those groups if we're involved, and just point that out that it's.
Yeah,
No,
in
that's good.
2016, Trump would not have been elected if there was not a divine direct interference in that. So the election was rigged then, and there was direct divine intervention in this to assure that Trump would win. But what's important with that, when Trump did win, when you looked at the amount of votes that were cast in the US, you had just, I believe, 150, 160 million votes that were actually voted in that election. But when you look at that amount, that's only slightly more than half of the entire American population. So what this meant, which is very significant, is that about 140 million people in the US did not trust any form of government. Now you can see very quickly where those 140 million are in some sort of alignment with GPMS right now, but in 2016, they were there. And when you take it a bit further and look at in that election with Clinton and Trump, when you look at the numbers, it was about a quarter each. But if you take Trump out of the equation because it was light supported, then that means 3/4 of the American population are in alignment with the change, and the other quarter only represents the darkness that is in there. So when you do that, you're looking at very huge numbers that can just boom at any time under the right conditions. And the right conditions are coming now as the false narratives break down.
Yeah, that'd be nice to see. Well,
yeah. And you take Canada. I mean, we take Canada several years ago. My connections also was in to the Squamish community there. Yeah, with what's Irene, if you will. But those also should have been in full alignment with this, and they rejected as well. So you're looking at Squamish sovereignty groups, you know, and knowing this, but for whatever reasons, they have not yet come into alignment, to my knowledge, with this. But where was it going? You know, with it, they were trying to create their own bank in Indonesia somewhere as well. But see, the thing is, none of this with any individual sovereign communities at creating your own bank. If it's accepted into the network, then you're actually sold yourself into that network.
Back
and
in
you're
the same system again,
depriving
aren't
the
you?
rest of humanity from it. So it's not a moral movement as well, and it's not in alignment, and it's always controlled and kept separate, these sovereign groups, because they are dependent and reliant on the full financial routing system and internet that's in control by the less than 1%. So this again is a vote by you know, GPMS to take the rightful and lawful ownership of these two mainstays of the world society and do what is right with them. Number one, print money instantly and comfortably. No one needs to be in misery.
So it's a process of the call it that has to happen, the failure of the QFS and the white hat or whatever, that has to be seen and processed through. Then that's what we're going through right now in North America, maybe. I don't know.
Well, you see these timelines, these false narratives, they cannot compete. And what we just spoke about, what Beatrice had mentioned in the meeting yesterday, with that, I think it's the white hats, Jassara, Nassara, or whatever, they said about a year away now. But the thing with that false narrative, they had to take a back seat again, because they cannot compete with what GPMS is doing. But by doing that, say in a year, they expect to keep the people tagging along, but that's not going to happen, because these people will become restless, these souls, and join with GPMS. You know, enough is enough. How long must that lie live when everything is occurring upon the planet with the Great Awakening is divinely occurring? So again, it cannot be refuted nor denied.
Well, yeah, like for me, like being introduced to GPMS or coming across it during this time and what was all going on, and we were trying to like stand up to the everything. Like there was the trucker thing in Canada here and all that, and freedom groups were spun off of that, and what was I gonna say, the oh shit, the I had a thought there. It went away.
Yeah, I know what you mean, the come and the go. That one, they're oriented towards their freedoms, but again, going through the processes of really discovering how within the governments it's not the way. So they need to have the experience. You can tell them, but they won't believe it, because
Well,
having
that's
the
what I was going to
experience.
say. It's for me, it was being introduced to GPMS and seeing it, and then and then going to the website, seeing the numbers there. And this was back when Thailand was right, like the one that had the most, and there was others around the world, but and then so I'm going to say it was like 18,000 or something there globally at the time, most of them being Thailand. And then so now it's about 50 or 60. um, but like it, for a lot of people to feel like it's a significant thing, or like would be like get to like hundreds of thousands and millions, you know what I mean? Like it has to get before people, I think a lot of people even start to acknowledge it, you know. So it feels like
Absolutely.
a long way to go, you know.
Yeah,
So,
but it's not. But you're correct. That's why we focus on collecting those that are in alignment and uniting all of those, and then we connect, all that's ready with it, and we increase the numbers quickly with that.
like
As we said,
I just like for like this would be great if say um like a politician or somebody could be promoting it as their new system, or but not to be in politics. It won't happen, right? Like like
exactly, they can't, because it's not
so
political. Yeah, this is
yeah.
the
So
release
but
of
you need
humanity.
that kind of figure, that kind of
But this is
persona out there.
Yeah. But this is what we're going to do. We're getting close to a point that very soon we're going to have a panel, if you will, of about 300 that are united. And why 300 is important is because when you look worldwide right now, there are about 250 world leaders, one for each country. But when you have a panel of 300, which is a small number of representatives of every country, there is no contest by the governments because of what the platform these 300 have. So it's all done, and it's over with that, and that's how close we are to it.
So it's like
Also,
a parallel kind of platform to the current political platform of the
yeah,
world,
the
you're
people
saying.
have a choice. Yeah.
Okay, and
And
show
and
them that. Okay.
the political platform cannot compete with what GPMS is, so it's all over. Now you look at
Mm,
when we look at, let's take the Philippines. Once we have 1 million votes collected on GPMS, this is very significant as well, because there is the energetic value and alignment of those votes. So you know how mass meditation works, but this is many multitudes more than that. So when you have 1 million worldwide, the energetic evaluation of that could be the same as 1 billion people,
mm,
because it's amplified with truth and in alignment with that. So
mm,
it's not to be underestimated in any way, because this is the most unprecedented, powerful thing in the world. Ever known to humanity. It's the new reality we're bringing in. And but nevertheless, if you look at the Philippines, if you look at one country that has the majority voice with this, what it does really, that country with the ability to make money falls into the people's hands. And when that does, the people can create money unlimitedly. Now, you may say the other governments worldwide would not accept it, But let's say because of the internet and because GPMS is a universal nation, the other governments have to back down and accept it. So it sets off a very huge chain reaction. So if one country worldwide, like the Philippines, gets a majority vote, it's going to knock down all of the dominoes in a chain reaction, because simply the rest of humanity has to follow suit because of what GPMS is. And at that point, it's well known around the world.
This
But
is, yeah, it reminds me of something. So there's a Peoples of the Salmon group in BC here, and they talk about indigenous, like the indigenous prophecies and stuff like this of different fires. And at one time they were talking about it being like it's going to start in the west here and go all across Turtle Island, North America, or whatever, the world. And they're like the same kind of thing, trying to set up their own banking system and to be a standalone and draw people into it and be part of that, and sovereignty and this and that. But it's not going anywhere, and there's nothing really happening with it. Like, it's a lot of talk about this and that, and they're still all talking about it being in the gold backed system and currency system that we have. So yeah, but we need something like that to ignite and spread. Yeah, where, who and where and what that is.
But Frank,
Oh,
probably already started, Frank, because you are in the BC. I return in Alberta, so it's the West, and we have Serb from Ontario, so it's probably already there. The energetic it's continue across Canada, and yes, because
it's coming, I guess,
with the United States and
yeah,
Rick.
Frank, do you know Gord Assal? Gord Assal? No. Okay, he just lives over on the other side of Chilliwack. All right, yeah, he's a good friend, and spent a lot of time. I haven't talked to him for years, but we were also up around Maple Ridge and some other friends I had there, and this was several years ago when I was there. But
nice.
But getting back, you see, to what we brought this up also, which is important. When you do just go online and see what they call, indigenous peoples of the world, they're saying only 6% is indigenous peoples. But, it's the definition of indigenous peoples that were always there, if you will. But nevertheless, when you look at that number, 6% worldwide, and then when you look at it in Canada, about 5% of the Canadian population is indigenous. So how is, even though if there is the good intention, which is there, how is less than 5% going to do anything in Canada? And this is why Gpms.world has to be done worldwide to take down the system, but to give that 95% of Canada a good reason why, they should let go of the old world as well. And the 6% worldwide indigenous community, they all as well should have been in here fully.
It surprises me.
Yeah, it was written in their prophecies, and the Hopi prophecy is so prevalent on the west coast of
so
North
what America. There's that's all infiltrated too, then? You know what I mean?
Well, like, chiefs, chiefs and even perhaps what they called some elders bought off to whatever degrees, and everything upon the planet was manipulated, including the church. But again, we need to find the genuine ones to step forward, the genuine indigenous leaders of North America. I believe Phil Lane Jr., I'll mention. I believe he's in alignment, but I've sent him a few messages and he hasn't really responded, but he could be busy as well. But having said this, one of their what they just did, the 8th fire ceremony, and you know what, with the condor, the hummingbird, bringing all the tribes together, this is what GPMS is as well. So,
Mhm.
you know, they should be on line with it. But getting back to your other question, you know, you have Peru, which is their population is not so high, but we have a significant number, you know, with Peru that's in there, and they are also a mover for South America, meaning to move the people there forward as well. So they are more instrumental and as a peer for that, with also Argentina. So you know, worldwide there are the certain countries, but then there's also, when we take China, we did get into China a bit. We did get, I think, 45 valid confirmations, but then it stopped. And what we're currently doing again now is we're getting starting to get some holes punched in there again. But ones need to realize, like with China, the persecution of anyone aligned with Christ, you know, and then the individuals become fearful. And on top of that, the huge censorship by the government in China. But what is beautiful is showing that the censorship is not complete, or there would not have been 45 valid consents in GPMS. So it shows that barrier has been broken as well.
There's a crack, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. No, this has been enlightening for me about the false narratives having to go through their process. So
yeah, the false narratives have a place and a purpose. Everything does have, you know, a reason and a place, but it's time now, like, for those to fall off. So I'd like to say, you know, because Father also told I to do that several years ago, we had to push the Gesera concept, you know, far enough ahead that it gave, even though it was false, it gave one some direction and a hope. And also during that time, it collected more to raise them up, if you will, and to be at least ready for a new system. Not that particular one, but it was.
Oh yeah, no, I felt that like years ago, like whatever, 2008 or 9 or something, you know, like coming across it and thinking, yeah, like why not? But then now it's like a decade or more later, and it's like still talking.
So it was instrumental, as we said. It had a place, right? And that's what these narratives are for. But it's time now that they all go, because we have created the one new reality. It is here now. It is ultimate. It's absolute. So now everyone can just switch to it.
Yeah, be nice.
Yeah. And it can be done just so quickly, as we said, you know. I love the being realistic, but also looking at the possibility of the power of 3. We have like 65,000, I believe, over in GPMS now. And if it was that easy that everyone could just give it to 3 and 3 give it to 3, I think in a matter of 10 days, we'd have our majority voice. So, you know, but being realistic at the same time, it should be able to go much quicker, and I believe it will. Yeah.
Let's get started. Yeah.
As you were saying, you know, if some of these genuine actors and movie stars or whatever, and singers, if they would endorse it, boom.
Yeah, just get to the masses a bit. Like, I find it hard to believe that they're all that controlled, you know, like.
Well, look at Julian Lennon as well. You know, our friend Ion, his friend is Julian Lennon.
Oh yeah.
And Ion's in GPMS, and keep telling him, you know, give it to Julian Lennon. I think he did, but this was over a year ago. Nothing.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So, this is
That's not.
what John Lennon,
Yeah.
imagine all
Give
the
peace a
people. This
chance.
is
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
geez,
Imagine.
come
Yeah.
on. This is
Imagine.
the
Yeah. Geez.
legacy. Live it out.
Oh, oh, I don't know. That would be awesome, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, then I think like the election in the States and Kennedy running as an independent and stuff, like like yeah, because he was a big part of the not the corruption of the vaccines and stuff, and like he's got a lot of support through that. Joe Rogan, like all these people, like yeah, like yeah, Joe Rogan know about it? Like, would you go on a show with Joe Rogan talking about it? You know what I mean? Like, he gets millions of people watching his shows. Yeah.
So, Serg, do you have a question? Do you have something to say?
Oh, yeah. I could ask about, like, we have in Canada, Romana Didulo. She called her like a queen of, I think she's like a control opposition or something. Is the message was brought to her, but she's like, I don't know, since convoy in Ottawa, she was like promoting no politics and just making rules on the internet, stuff like that. If she knows about GPMS, does anybody like send her a message or email? Is was any response from her? Do you hear me?
Yeah, we do, Serge. Yeah, was this Queen Ramona? Was that who you're
Yeah,
speaking?
yeah. Queen Romana Didulo, I believe
Yeah.
her last name.
Well, with her as well, it's become at this point, yes, that she was controlled opposition. She was also given GPMS. We put it in our groups, and very quickly, the admin took the post down and also banned at least a few of us, I don't know how many, from the groups as well. So it became very obvious. It became very obvious that something was not correct there, and it was another part of a controlled opposition. See, very deeply, what is going on, and I need to say this, it's that the remnants of darkness know fully who and what I am. So by doing that, they are playing their games as well as trying to take away ones that believe, and followers, if you will, and to lead them astray, because in reality, we are the biggest threat to the darkness upon the planet. So even though it's in vain and futile what they do, they will, play the game. So they'll support like a Queen Ramana, give them, money, because money is really no object, but these ones can be bought to do their bidding and to lead people astray. And again, this is what looks very apparent to I, but um, I don't exclude these ones that could come in, very quickly in the future and change the playing field as well. But the present observation is that they are controlled opposition. Again, when they violently reject GPMS, that makes the broad, truthful statement to us, what their objective is and what their underlying agenda is for the people, and it shows they're not genuine, to refuse and reject something so simple. When you look at the simplicity of GPMS, it's a worldwide vote, and the majority rules. Ones like Queen Renata or Queen Ramona,
Ramona,
yeah. They, with their education, they know how things work. So it is no excuse to plead ignorance or what have you when it's simply given to them. We're having a worldwide vote, majority of the people. Here's the new system. We got all the knowledge. Get your people on board. How simple is that for a genuine leader or speaker for the people?
Yeah.
They don't even need to be educated. So it becomes obvious.
Yeah, it's like things are pulling us in or pulling us into some other sideline battle or sideline fight to put your attention to, like for instance, this group I was telling you about doing like the banking fraud, like trying to stand up to the banking fraud, and it's like, yeah, it takes you away from it, your focus away, right? Distractions.
Yeah, the highest truth is upon the planet. It's not about the money itself. It's about the control of money, the energy that is created. So by keeping humanity in misery, each human soul, if they're in misery and in lack, they are projecting that out into the environment and adding that to reality. Why this is so significant is because this place of misery, animosity, suffering is the only place that the darkness can reside. They cannot go into a new world where GPMS is at. So they use money to control the energy to trick humanity into competing, fighting, aggression, because that energy.
It's all about the money. Yeah, it's all about the money all the time. Yeah.
It's about
yeah,
many of the patriots, they are just lost right in that with that fighting and generating that aggression, because that is just what the darkness wants. So
yeah,
the patriots fell for this, this sort of a tactic, when common sense, when you look at, let's say, some of these are supposed to be army and military ones, again, very simply, with any military strategy, you just get the majority of the people and you overpower the problem.
Yeah, and
I have
another question. I have another question. Do you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. It's like I heard about like some people who see by remote viewing, like the future timelines, in the lower timelines, some situation gonna happen in Canada in the November, at the end of November, like the 20th up to 25th dates in November. Do you know anything about? Is there gonna be like some protest against government? Maybe we can show up on these protests with the GPMS message.
Thank you, Serge. With GPMS, we don't protest and we don't generate aggression. But having said that, you can be on the sidelines and smile and hand people GPMS, saying, here's the solution. Don't fight. Come on, just unite. We have it all here, if you will. But anything from, no, Serge, I didn't really hear any organized protests from Canada. But having said this, on the lower timeline, yes, there's going to be many that are still in that lower level of consciousness that are going to fight to whatever degrees. And if that means protests and even chaos, that is going to occur as well. And it's part of the process. Yes, for let's say if there's many protests in Canada again, and let's say if they see it shut down by the government, sooner or later they're going to say, okay, there's got to be a solution, and then they'll be open to GPMS.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, brother. Thank you.
So Rick, because we have people in Canada and they are looking for individual sovereignty status, it is also good to say that GPMS is the system that practically they will experience full individual sovereignty status inside. So it's just because some of them, they are still looking to inside of the Bible for the rights. And, you know, we had also a little bit of this situation, this aspect with the farmers and everything in February, March 2023. So when they started also to make, to bring up like organization or to bring inside like how they are saying churches, but non-registered churches, just to have like a statue that may surpass the actual system, but practically they are still inside of the system. So GPMS for them, it's the right system where they can experience full individual sovereignty, and they are not linked with the actual system because their unregistered church are still linked with the actual system. Then the actual system can come with a new legislation, and by there they cannot move forward with the farm that they want and the benefit and everything. So this was also because, you know, we have also group of autonomy, and it's just to link a little bit the names: autonomy, individual sovereignty, natural law, universal natural law, because many of them, they do not know the link. And as I said before, we had also doctors, the principle of do not harm. Okay, from where do not harm is coming? They have no idea. So this is not coming from nowhere, just to link all the time individual sovereignty and universal natural law. So we should probably work on a keywords somehow. As I started, you know, that I started to present in a minute the answer of universal natural law, and work like, you know, list a little bit of keywords. I have already mine, and we can see a little bit and
That's a good
move
idea.
forward also with keywords, because the quick answer for someone that has no any kind of idea what we are speaking about, they are saying what it is inside, what means universal natural law, you know. The short definition should be like, did you hear maybe do not harm, or did you hear maybe if he see there something, then he will see after that the list that everything is connected, and this is universal natural law, is to react from somewhere.
If I may, this is important to interject right now. I saw with Zamoxi, however you pronounce it, the Dacians, you know, god, it was referred to with his laws, which is in alignment with universal law, but one used the adjective gentle law, gentle law. And I love that. And that is, you know, what we're doing. Now, when you're speaking about the doctors, when they said do no harm, you know, the code of ethics is part of what any doctor or military, well, not so much military, but police, you know, there is certain standards and codes of ethics that they have. And the do no harm was a part of this. You know, perhaps it's eradicated out of there right now. But I mean, when you look at a doctor, common sense is there to be a caretaker and to be responsible to ensure the health of the individual for sure. And also they do have the code of ethics to follow, and simply, you know, part of that is don't kill your patients, if you will. But nevertheless, what you're saying, ones need to understand what GPMS is. In the moment that you consent to this, it is your proclamation and your decree that establishes right in that moment your full sovereignty, but your full autonomy and uniting with the group. This is different. Any sovereign groups in the past were what were separatist groups, to branch away, and any sovereignty, it's part of the process to do that. But you no longer need to go through a process to separate yourself from government. You just instantly align with the autonomous GPMS universal nation that has its own monetary system and its own laws. Even though it's not fully upon the planet yet, it has the whole entire schematic for that. But importantly, it becomes the individual's knowing that in that moment you are declaring your independence as soon as you join with GPMS, because you're joining a universal established nation, if you will, and it cannot geographically have at this time any geographical address, because it's worldwide, it's all encompassing. So having said that, it is also superior law, if you will, because it's based on God's law, and as Peter said, do no harm. And it's also you are proclaiming your unalienable rights, such as your right to sustenance, which means that you cannot be deprived. And in the old, it may still be there in the Canadian Constitution, you have the right to live and sustenance, which includes a place to live and to have enough money or enough food to survive on. So having said this, what GPMS does, it takes you beyond that with all of your rights, and it's all inclusive. It's written there in your decree. So really, someone doesn't need to pay a bunch of money with all of these papers to separate from a system, because the moment that one is doing that, you're recognizing the system as an authority, which they are not. So you are in conflict with yourself. So GPMS is easier, that you don't recognize any other authority but yourself, and all of those united with the universal nation of GPMS that respects and recognizes all of the unalienable rights. So you don't need to prove yourself to anyone, because the reality is you are your own authority, joining with all of the others like-minded that also know this, and we're creating the new world. So you don't need to pay lots of money. You can, in the moment, you can do it. And this is also part of the problem with the sovereign groups, where they're also labeled separatist movement. And in this time, we've been giving this simplicity, what I just said, to the sovereign people leaders. Tell your people, here's the autonomy. You proclaim it in the moment. There is no authority above you. But if you keep thinking that a government or someone else is an authority, you're never into your true independence, your autonomy, your true sovereignty. You are always humbled by the outside system. So you need to raise above the humility and come with GPMS and where it's written, and do your own decrees.
Yeah, you don't ask for permission to be sovereign.
Yeah.
Yeah. This has been really good, but I'm going to have to, I got to get going, but really enjoyed this today.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. I believe I'm going to step out and have a cigarette, or are you soon wrapping this up, Beatrice, or does Serge have any more questions or comments?
So we had only 2 more people from Canada today, but I would plan more. Is like make a small plan to come together with the United States all the time. So to have like one meeting or something like, and Emily to be here, because practically we have no borders. So it's like Canada and the United States with GPMS or without GPMS, they are already united. They are already on the same direction. So it's like we are very, it's also the English spoken on both sides. It's also the economic side. It's like 60% of the exchange was done between Canada and the United States in the past. So we are it's also a little bit on the same like-minded and everything. And probably we should have meetings together and start to attract all the contributors from Canada and from the United States that they want to come in the meeting, and to see how can we move forward here also in the North America. So it's like, this is also a little bit my thinking, and it was exactly what you said before, and also what Frank said. You do not need permission to be individual sovereign, because exactly it was the situation from Romania that they ask what it is, because they cannot understand universal nation, how we are a nation, because their mind is fixed on countries, and this country is the nation. So how it can come like a nation? Are we an organization? It's exactly what you answer. So right now we have the answer, is just to share the video and nothing more. No, we are not an organization because we are not linked to this system. And yes, we do not have an address, because this was also the thinking in Romania. So do you have an address somewhere? So where are you? We are everywhere. They cannot understand that. So it's like a little bit, in time we will be here forever and we are everywhere. So this is a little bit very hard to see when you focus in something like country, and so the system, this is the education system, the Roman Empire education system. So it's something that we need to move on this direction, and to explain also more in other video, in the coming videos. And what can I say? It's thank you so much for today's explanation, and we have what to share. And just come back and the next time, and to unite with the United States, because there it's no border.
Yeah, united we stand.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Beatrice. That was great.